Hey man, there's a lesson that every grounded man learns the hard way, and it hits the deepest when you thought you had something real, when you were vulnerable, when you thought, if she loves me, she'll understand. But here's the hard truth, she won't. Because women are not built to love you through your struggle, they're built to be drawn to your strength. You can cry to your mom, vent to your boys, pray to God, but never ever collapse emotionally in front of the woman you're trying to keep attracted. Because the second you show weakness without resolution, you stop being the man her hypergamy selected. And once that happens, her body might stay, but her soul leaves quietly. Let's get this clear. Women don't fall in love with your pain. They fall in love with your power. That doesn't mean you need to be fake, cold, or distant, but it does mean this. If you're in a storm, don't drag her into the eye of it. You can be honest without being helpless. You can be real without being pitiful. Because the moment she sees you as emotionally dependent, someone she has to carry rather than follow, you flip the polarity. You're no longer the rock, you're the wreck. And female nature, it punishes emotional instability in men with silence, distance, and eventually rejection. Here's what men don't understand. When a woman first chooses you, she chooses what you represent. Your confidence, your drive, your calm in chaos. It's not just attractive, it's irresistible. But the moment you start dumping your fears, your doubts, your failures on her, without action, without clarity, you're rewiring her image of you. You're going from protector to project. And no woman wants to sleep with a man she has to raise. She might feel bad. She might say she's here for you. But inside, her feminine is pulling away because it can't be emotionally penetrated by a man who's crumbling. You ever wonder why women lose interest after you finally open up? Why she seemed closer before you trusted her with your pain? It's because of this one brutal truth. Women are not emotionally equipped to hold space for a man's unresolved darkness. She doesn't want to see you cry about problems you haven't solved. She wants to see you win through the war. That's what makes her admire you. That's what keeps her invested. Women don't fall in love with your vulnerability. They fall in love with your ability to carry weight and still walk forward. Don't let modern culture lie to you. They'll tell you real men cry. Be emotionally available. Share your feelings. But they don't tell you the part that matters. Do it with men. Do it with mentors. Do it in spaces built for masculine processing. Because the moment you drop that emotional burden at a woman's feet, she won't know how to carry it. She'll look at you with confusion, maybe even say all the right things, but inside, she's already detaching. She's already thinking, this man is not who I thought he was. Not because she's cruel, but because her biology is hardwired to follow strength, not sadness. And don't confuse this with toxic stoicism. This isn't about bottling everything inside. It's about direction. When you're struggling, struggle in motion. Show her that you're going through hell, but you're building a bridge through it. That you're hurt, but still leading. That you're in pain, but your vision is bigger than your breakdown. That's the difference between masculine vulnerability and emotional surrender. One draws her in, the other pushes her out. Because hypergamy isn't attracted to pain, it's attracted to potential. If she sees you bleeding but moving, she still believes in you. If she sees you bleeding and stuck, she starts looking elsewhere. You've got to understand this. Hypergamy is ruthless, not evil. It's just nature. A woman is always scanning for the best possible option, even subconsciously. The man who holds it together under pressure. The man who solves instead of sulks. The man who adapts instead of breaks. That's the man her instincts scream to submit to. But show her you can't handle life, and her instincts flip. You're no longer the leader, you're the load. And women do not desire the men they feel obligated to support emotionally. They desire the men they feel safe surrendering to. It doesn't matter if you're broke, jobless, or in chaos. If you hold your frame, she can still believe in your future. But the moment you start narrating your downfall like a victim, she checks out. Because a hypergamous filter isn't asking, is he struggling? It's asking, will he stay here? If she senses that you're slipping into helplessness, hopelessness, or indecision, she starts distancing emotionally, slowly, quietly. And when you ask why, she'll just say, I don't feel the same. Of course she doesn't. Because the man she was in love with doesn't feel like the man you've become. This is why silence is powerful. When you're in a rough season, disappear to build. Not out of shame, but out of honor. Don't trauma dump on a woman you just started dating. Don't talk about how depressed you are, how hard life's been, how nobody understands you. She's not your therapist, she's not your savior, and the moment you put her in that role, you become emotionally feminine, you become the chaos, and she becomes the container. That role reversal, it's relationship death, because it's your job to be the container, to absorb the storm, to steady the ship. Here's how a high-value man handles pain, privately, purposefully, and powerfully. He doesn't leak weakness, he transmutes it into strength. He doesn't seek pity, he seeks power. He doesn't overshare, he overcomes, and when he returns from the fire, he's sharper, calmer, more focused. That's the man women obsess over, the one who went missing during the storm, only to return with thunder in his step. The one who didn't make her carry his pain, but made her witness his comeback. That man doesn't beg for respect, he commands it. And that's how you satisfy hypergamy without saying a single word. You want her to admire you, then disappear when you're down, and reappear when you're up. That contrast, that's what burns itself into her memory. That's what makes her look at you like a myth, like a man who doesn't fold under pressure, but multiplies in silence. If she sees you cry, it better be at your father's funeral, not because your boss disrespected you. If she sees you shaken, it better be because you're holding everything together for your family, not because life didn't go your way. Women don't need you to be a robot, they need to see your depth. But that depth must always have direction. Women crave a story, and you are either writing one of leadership or one of collapse. Every man hits a low point, but how you frame it determines what kind of man she sees. Are you the man who turned pain into purpose, or are you the man who used pain to explain his paralysis? A woman might listen to your complaints, she might nod when you talk about your depression, but inside, she's measuring your ability to lead her through life, and if you can't lead yourself, she'll quietly start imagining a man who can. That's how hypergamy operates. It doesn't wait, it replaces. Understand something fundamental. A woman's desire is reactive. It responds to your energy, your presence, your direction. When you speak like a victim, you invert that polarity. You become the receptor, the one needing reassurance, safety, and love. But that's her role. She wants to feel protected, not be your protector. You can share your thoughts, your struggles, but you better package it in the voice of a man who's already halfway through the solution. She doesn't need you to be perfect, but she needs you to believe in yourself even when it's hard. Because if you don't, she won't either. Here's what most men do when life punches them. They lean on the woman they're dating. They think sharing everything will bring them closer, but what it really does is destroy attraction inch by inch. Because the more she sees you emotionally dependent, the more she resents having to carry the weight. And that resentment, it turns into criticism, distance, disinterest. Then one day you wake up and she's cold, she's gone, or worse, she's entertaining a man who doesn't complain. And you sit there thinking, I thought she loved me. She might have, until you asked her to be your emotional crutch. Hypergamy is a biological mechanism. It rewards strength. It punishes perceived weakness. If you want to win in the dating game, you need to stop thinking in terms of fairness and start thinking in terms of realness. Life isn't fair, and female nature isn't either. It's instinctual. It doesn't care about your story, it cares about your energy. That's why she'll fall harder for the man who says less, but does more. The one who disappears when he's hurt and reappears sharper. She'll never forget the mystery of a man who never made his pain her problem, but made his comeback her privilege to witness. If you're struggling financially, emotionally, or spiritually, good. Let it crush you. Let it destroy the old version of you. But don't go running to her with your broken pieces. That's your work. That's your masculine fire. Women don't want to build you. They want to witness your build. And the moment you make her part of your breakdown, you shift the frame. You become the dependent. She becomes the caretaker. And from there, the polarity dies. Attraction dies. She might stay out of guilt, but her desire, gone. And without desire, you're just roommates waiting to implode. There's power in solitude. There's magic in isolation. And the man who learns to suffer in silence, but rebuild in silence too, becomes dangerous. He becomes unpredictable, magnetic, legendary. You want to make her obsessed? Don't share your tears. Share your triumph. Show her you went through hell, but came back with gold in your hands, that you battled your demons and didn't need her applause, that you stared into the void and didn't flinch. That's the kind of energy that keeps her up at night. Not the man who sends paragraphs of emotional venting, but the one who sends a photo of his progress without saying a word. Let's get even deeper. When you share unresolved pain, she doesn't just lose attraction, she absorbs your fear. Women are emotional sponges. When you vent your chaos, she doesn't feel more connected, she feels less safe, because her subconscious is looking for safety, direction, certainty. And when you dump your fear on her, you're shifting the emotional burden to the wrong shoulders. She might not say it, but she'll start feeling unstable. And what happens when a woman feels unsafe? She pulls away, first emotionally, then physically, and finally, she vanishes. And you'll never even know what you did wrong. This is the paradox most men don't want to accept. If you want a woman to love you deeply, never make her the center of your emotional world. She should orbit around your purpose, not be your therapist. Your truth, your direction, that's what draws her in. Not how much you need her, but how well you move without her. That creates the gravitational pull. That's how you satisfy hypergamy without simping. You show her strength, not speeches. You show her vision, not victimhood. And when she sees that, she leans in. Not because you begged, but because she feels safe in your frame. So if you're hurting right now, remember this. The world owes you nothing. Women owe you nothing. And your pain, no matter how real, doesn't exempt you from the rules of attraction. You can either use it as fuel or as a leash that keeps you crawling. But whatever you do, don't bring it to her doorstep. She didn't sign up to raise you. She signed up to be led by you. And the man who leads through fire without losing his soul, he's rare, he's valuable, he's desired. Don't become less of him just to feel seen. Become more of him so you never need to be saved. When a woman looks at a man, she's not just looking at who he is today. She's subconsciously evaluating who he'll be under pressure. Will he crumble or will he climb? Will he look to her for rescue or will he rebuild in silence? These questions exist in her biology. She's wired to seek safety. And if you share too much struggle too early, without resolution, without clarity, you signal instability. You shift from leader to liability. And while she might not articulate it, she'll feel it. And once she feels it, the attraction doesn't just dip, it plummets. You can have your low days. You're allowed to bleed, but bleed in silence. Bleed in brotherhood. Bleed in battle, not in her arms. That doesn't mean lie. That doesn't mean hide. It means you share from strength, not from survival. If she asks how you're doing, tell her the truth, but lead with vision. I'm facing some things right now, but I've got a plan. That's a man's frame. That's what keeps her respect intact. That's what lets her exhale. Because even in your pain, you carry direction. And direction is what she respects. There's a reason men historically went off into the woods, the mountains, the desert to face themselves, alone. There's something sacred about solitude. When you bleed in front of women, you invite misinterpretation, not because she's evil, but because she sees emotion as a signal, not a story. If you're sad, she doesn't ask why. She asks, am I safe? If you're lost, she doesn't think, he'll figure it out. She thinks, maybe I need someone who already knows. It's brutal, but it's real. And when you understand this, you stop looking for comfort and start building your inner citadel. Here's a principle that will save you years of heartbreak. Don't share your storm with a woman unless you've already mastered it. Unless you've already named the dragon, mapped the battlefield, and decided who you'll become on the other side. Share your wisdom, not your wounds. Let her see the man who rose, not the man who's still crawling. Because she's not falling in love with your pain, she's falling in love with how you transmuted it. That's what makes her trust your leadership. That's what makes her respect your energy. And that's what separates the boys from the kings. The hardest part for most men is realizing that love doesn't mean exposure. It means stability. She doesn't want the raw footage. She wants the final cut. She wants the man who edited his trauma into discipline. The man who doesn't need her to validate him, because he validates himself with action. When you overexpose your inner battles, you turn her from lover to therapist. And no woman wants to be a man's therapist, not long term. At best, she'll pity you. At worst, she'll despise you. Either way, attraction dies, because attraction is rooted in awe, and awe can't survive overexposure. You want to stand out in this modern dating scene? Be the man who shares power, not pain. The man who doesn't need to explain every detail of his past, but whose presence shows he's conquered it. The man who walks into a room and carries stillness, not because life was easy, but because he wrestled with chaos and learned how to dance with it. That's the kind of man women can't stop thinking about. Not because he's flashy, but because he's solid, and solid men. They don't overshare, they overflow with calm power. If you ever wonder why women flock to the man who says less, who moves slower, who never opens up too soon, it's because mystery creates magnetism, and magnetism creates desire. Hypergamy isn't attracted to transparency, it's attracted to transcendence. The man who rose despite his demons, not the man who wants you to meet every one of them. She doesn't want to explore your cave of sorrows. She wants to stand next to the man who built a fortress over it. And if you learn to reveal your strength in layers, without bleeding your story all over the floor, you become unforgettable. There's nothing wrong with needing support, but your woman is not your support system. She's your witness. She watches what you do, not just what you say. So when you're in pain, don't go running to her. Go running to purpose. Go running to your vision, your craft, your calling. Go rebuild in silence. Let your results speak for you, because when you come back stronger, without crying, without over-explaining, she'll look at you with new eyes. Eyes of respect, eyes of desire, eyes that say, that's a man I can follow. And that's the only currency that matters. The world is filled with men who overshare and underperform, men who talk about their pain but never alchemize it. Don't be one of them. Be the man who disappears when he's down and returns when he's deadly. Let your transformation be so loud, you don't have to explain where you've been. Let your silence become sacred. Let your suffering become your sculptor. And when she asks where you were, you simply smile and say, working. That's how kings speak. That's how warriors return. And that's how desire is maintained. Not by dumping your pain, but by disciplining it. So remember this every time you feel the urge to vent to her. It might feel good in the moment, it might even feel authentic, but long term, you're sabotaging the very foundation of her attraction. Because once she sees you as unstable, once she feels your frame waver, she cannot unsee it. And from that moment forward, her biology starts looking elsewhere. It's not cruel, it's nature. So if you want to master hypergamy, start by mastering yourself, your emotions, your energy, your frame, and then you become the man she never dares to leave because she knows she'll never find that strength again. The more you try to make her understand your pain, the more distant she becomes, because pain without resolution reads like instability, and instability feels like danger. Her attraction is not just emotional, it's biological. She's not seeking a man who bleeds openly. She's seeking a man who bleeds internally and keeps moving. When you complain, when you explain, when you put her in the position of emotional caretaker, you stop being her rock. You become her responsibility. And attraction never survives obligation. She doesn't want to feel like your emotional mother. She wants to feel like your chosen woman next to a man who's already conquered himself. Don't confuse vulnerability with weakness. Vulnerability, when earned, is powerful. But most men haven't earned it. They think being open is the path to connection. And maybe with friends it is, but with women, it has to come with context, with leadership, with frame. Yes, I've struggled, but I built something from it. Yes, I've fallen, but here's how I rose. That is vulnerability with authority. It doesn't make her uncomfortable, it makes her trust you. Because you're not seeking her to hold your broken pieces. You're showing her the man who glued himself back together and walked on anyway. Women don't want to solve your problems. They want to admire the man who already did. So when you get tempted to share your stress about money, your doubts about the future, your existential confusion, stop. Ask yourself, is this something I've processed, or am I bleeding right now? If you're bleeding, stay silent. Go inward. Seek masculine counsel. Find your tribe, because dumping your pain on her might feel relieving in the moment, but it kills the polarity. It ruins the tension, and tension is what drives attraction. She doesn't want comfort, she wants certainty, and you are the provider of that certainty. Hypergamy isn't about being rich or perfect or emotionless. It's about being stable. When you show her that nothing rocks you, not failure, not confusion, not even her mood swings. You create emotional gravity. You become the anchor, the lighthouse. And the truth is, she wants to surrender, but only to a man who's built to carry her weight. If she senses that your world crumbles when life hits hard, she can't trust you with her feminine chaos. So don't offer up your fear like it's intimacy. Show her your discipline, show her your resilience, and she'll give you something far more valuable than sympathy. She'll give you devotion. Every man will face moments where he wants to be held, where he wants to say, I don't know what to do, but you need to know this. Those moments aren't for her, they're for you, for your soul, for your mirror. You go deal with it. You go cry in the gym, scream into the void, bleed on the page, but you don't bring it to her doorstep. You bring her results. You bring her your leadership. You bring her the outcome of the pain, not the mess of it. And when you do that, she doesn't lose respect. She gains reverence, because now she sees what kind of man she's dealing with. So many men today mistake emotional dumping for bonding. They think, if I show her my pain, she'll love me more. But she's not wired like that. She's wired to trust your stability, to crave your ability to self-regulate. When you hand her your emotional volatility, you break the very thing that made her attracted in the first place. You kill the polarity, you reverse the roles, you become the feminine energy, and she becomes the container. And while she might play along for a while, deep down, something shifts. She stops respecting, she starts drifting, and you won't even realize it until she's gone. Women remember how you make them feel, not how much you share, not how raw you were, but how safe they felt in your presence. And safety isn't about never being vulnerable, it's about being unshakable. That means when life punches you, you don't cry to her, you take the hit and keep leading. That doesn't make you cold, it makes you magnetic. It tells her, even when I fall, I rise. And that, brother, is the kind of energy that keeps women obsessed. Not because you're emotionally distant, but because you're emotionally anchored. Let her see the pain in your eyes, but not in your words. Let her feel the fire in your silence. Let your struggle shape your character, not your conversations. When she asks how you're doing, say handling it. When she worries about you, say trust me. Because the moment you make her feel like she has to lead, like she has to fix you, like she has to be your savior, you've lost the dynamic. You've become the burden, and women don't want burdens, they want anchors, men who can carry their own weight. And when you become that man, she'll fall, not for your story, but for your strength. The modern world will lie to you and say just be honest with your emotions, but that advice only works when you've built a container first, a frame, a foundation. Women don't want access to your chaos, they want to see how you manage it. They want to know that you feel, but also that you function, that you hurt, but you never stop building, that you suffer, but you don't seek rescue. You seek resurrection. Be that man. The man who doesn't deny his darkness, but who doesn't need to showcase it either, because his actions already speak louder than any confession ever could. So, here's the truth, brother. Stop offering your pain as a gift. Stop inviting women into your brokenness. Stop believing that struggle equals intimacy. It doesn't. It equals instability. And the feminine cannot trust instability. Instead, become the man who struggles in silence, who heals in solitude, and who returns with power. Not because he wants praise, but because that's who he is. Because he understands the game, and because he knows that the moment he makes her his emotional refuge, he loses her as a romantic partner. Protect your struggle, protect your frame, and watch how the world and the women in it respond with reverence, not pity.